We didn't win to
That was I didn't actually see it, but I heard about it and I saw some of the highlights. That was craziness. I didn't even know what was happening. My bad. Until I saw Facebook start blowing up, and then I was like, oh my gosh, I should actually check out what's going on. And that was crazy. So, anyway, I just wanted to, we're talking football. That's football. It's awesome. So, hey, who remembers last week talking about the underdog story? And actually, the Seahawks were kind of like the underdog story because they just choked the first, 3/4 of the game, and then had to come back. They kind of dug themselves into a hole. So, that's a pretty relevant story of the underdog for our Seahawks. But now they're 4-0. Anybody think we're gonna finish? We're gonna finish like first in the division this year, Seahawks. Yeah. Yeah. Anybody think? Maybe not. Probably not. A few. Who knows? How many just don't care?
Wait, say it again.
All right. So check this out. Last week we talked about that whole underdog, the idea of the underdog story, right? So like. There's so many obstacles that are in our way, that are in our life, obstacles that are too big, we feel like they're too big to overcome on our own. And that's why we all relate so much to this underdog story. And we talked about the question, what does it look like to ask God, what are you doing in me, as opposed to what are you doing to me? Because it's so easy to go right to the, God, what are you doing? What are you doing to me right now? What are you doing to me? Like, I don't understand what's happening, but instead, for those who belong to Christ, we get to ask the question, God, what are you doing in me? How are you using this for good? But as we left last week, I was actually going to talk about something different this week, but as we left and I heard some feedback, I was kind of thinking about, well, maybe that's not enough. Maybe the whole idea of like, God's not really doing something to you, but He's working in you. Like, I don't actually think that's enough. Because if it's just like you're working through these trials in your life, and then all of a sudden it just leads to nowhere, right? If like you have to overcome these obstacles, or overcome depression, or overcome your parents' divorce, or overcome some sort of abuse or anxiety or whatever's in your life, if you just get to ask the question, God, what are you doing in me, and then you die, and then it doesn't even count for anything, then what's the point, right? So we have to take it one step further and talk about where do all these underdog stories actually lead. Is there a bigger purpose? Because if there's no purpose, it's not worth it. So in football, if you're a running back, anybody ever been a running back? Football? Yeah?
Yeah,
So my guess is, okay, so just think about it. Running back gets the ball, they hand the ball, they got to run that ball up the field, and they got to like go through these linemen and these really big dudes who the only thing these defenses trying to do is kill that guy with the ball, right? It's not I can't imagine that many running backs or anybody on offense would really be excited about the sheer idea of just getting tackled for no reason. Like if you just run this ball and there's no purpose to it, you're not, just run it and get hit by this 300-pound guy and get laid out. Like, that's not exactly, I think, what they would want to be about. It's not what I want to be about, because I would hurt the other guy too bad. So you don't just risk an injury, because football is really risky. You don't just risk an injury just for the sake of that was fun. Let me get tackled because that sounds awesome. There's got to be a bigger purpose. So why would you do it? So in the same thing in life, with these underdog stories that we go through and that we face these things day after day, there's got to be a bigger plan. Because if there's no bigger plan to God working in you or these underdog stories, then if you go through all of it and you just die one day and that was your life, to be honest, if God said, if that was what the plan was, where God was like, hey, just go through all that and then you die, I'd be like, God, I'm going to pass. Like, I don't want to be part of your plan. I want to bow out of what you're doing. I don't think this is for me. Like, I appreciate what you're trying to do for me, but I can do things, I can try to figure stuff out way easier than what you brought me to right now. So if I want it to be about me. If there's no bigger plan, I want it to be about me. My comfort, my joy, my happiness, my peace, because while I'm here for these 80 years, I at least want to enjoy it. And so if it being about God is going to lead me nowhere, then honestly, I really don't want to be a part of it. So I think we ask this question, and then we think, but God, if there actually is a bigger, grander purpose to my chronic pain, my never-ending illness, my broken home life, or my low view of myself, or my depression, or my friends who turn away from me, or my anger problems, or my addictions, or my struggles in school, we're like, God, will you just let me know what the bigger plan is? How many times have we all asked God, we ask the question, God, what are you doing in me? But like, that's not enough. We want to know the big picture. God, just let me know your plan. Tell me what you're actually doing. Because even though I want to give anything to get out of this situation, if you're going to use this for good somehow, I don't know how, but somehow if you're going to use it for good, then I'm willing to at least listen to what you have to say, God. I'm willing to at least listen. And so, what could actually be worth it? Like, you guys, everybody, I've heard a lot of people who are older say, you kids have it so easy. You live on the Sammamish Plateau. Your life is handed to you. Everything you ever wanted or ever needed is right in front of you. You're so privileged. You have such an advantage. And that's not the same story I hear from you. I hear completely different stories from you. It's the, yeah, we have all that, but life is still really hard. So what could possibly make all this worth it? And so to hear what God has to say, let's go to His Word and check this out. Members from Tijuana. Looking with myself. All right. So God, what do you have to say? Here's what God opens up in this situation and says. Hey, it says, yet what we suffer now is nothing compared to the glory that He will reveal to us later. For all creation is waiting eagerly for that future day when God will reveal who His children really are. Against its will, all creation was subjected to God's curse, but with eager hope, creation looks forward to the day when it will join God's children in glorious freedom from death and decay. Romans 8:18. So, we're going to 30-second theology moment. We got to talk about, okay, it talks about God's curse. What does that mean? Because I thought God was only good. I thought God only did good stuff. And yet it says God's curse. So, here's the 30-second theology moment. The world was perfect, right? We all know that in the beginning God made it and it was good. When we ate the fruit in the garden, we kind of disobeyed God. Like the one thing He said not to do, we did it. So it's like when someone says, don't push the big red button. You push the big red button. We disobeyed God's command, and the world was without sin, but now it had sin. We all know the story. Suddenly, this world is no longer perfect, and God's curse is actually really a righteous response to our sin. So God's curse is actually His righteous response to our sin. So many times, we always say, yeah, but if God was all loving, then He would give us that second chance, right? Like God would just let that slide and like maybe let it happen. You know, if God was that much love, why would we just let it slide? God is perfectly loving, but He's also perfectly holy, which means He's just. He's just. He's like a very righteous, upstanding judge. He makes the right call. And this crime, us pushing the big red button, needed a punishment. Like, just like a fair judge would punish the crime. But what we like to do is we like to talk about how loving God is all the time and not talk about so much how just God is and how much of a righteous judge He is. And the damage that we do sometimes, if we hold the love up higher than the justice, then we kind of present God out of balance. And then He's no longer a perfect God. He holds love and justice equally. So while He does love us, His justice response to our sin was to allow this curse to enter the world. Okay? So that's how God's curse entered the world. Even though He's only good, He is absolutely righteous and perfect. So the punishment fit the crime. Now, jumping back in. You and I feel the effects of this curse today, right? So like in our relationships, we have betrayal, we have conflicts, we have discord, we have disunity. In our health, there's illness, there's disease, there's death. In our families, there's broken homes, there's disconnected people. Unfortunately, 1 in 3 women will suffer from some sort of abuse in their life. So if you're out there and that's happened to you, you are certainly not alone. Even though sometimes it can feel like it. In our emotions, sadness, loneliness, depression. In our spiritual life, we choose sin, we distance ourselves from God on purpose. So we live this whole life like feeling the effects of God's curse. We feel what our sin did, and we can't escape it. But just as God is perfect, His kingdom is totally perfect, and with eager hope, like this says, Creation looks forward to the day when it will join God's children in glorious freedom from death and decay. Which means that one day, every single broken thing in your life is going to, if you belong to Jesus, every single broken thing in your life will be fixed. Which means every hurt will be healed. It means that every pain that you have will be relieved. And every imperfection will be made just as perfect as God is. And God is completely perfect. So that's why this says that what we suffer now is nothing compared to the glory that's coming. We have no clue what perfection feels like, because even now, all of our thoughts, even our best thoughts, our most joyous moments are still under the effects of the curse of sin. But one day, it's going to be gone. And you guys are going to get to experience, like, as real as I'm standing in front of you is as real as Jesus will be to you. And one day, all these effects of sin is going to be gone, and you're going to stand there with a perfect body, with perfect relationships, with perfect health, with a perfect family, and your perfect emotions. The Message says, of the same verse, that's why I don't think there's any comparison. There's not even a comparison between the present hard times and the coming good times. What God's telling us is that the suffering that you're in, the underdog story you face, the obstacles in your life, the pain, the depression, all these hard things that you guys deal with each and every day. I don't care if you live in Sammamish. You have a lot of crap that goes on in your life. And all these things that we deal with that are so much in our view are not even on the same playing field as what's coming our way for those who belong to Jesus. 80 years on a broken planet will not even hold a candle to an eternity of perfect joy. So, what does Peter say about this? He says, so be truly glad, there is wonderful joy ahead, even though you have to endure many trials for a little while. These trials will show that your faith is genuine, it is being tested as fire tests and purifies gold, and even though your faith is far more precious than mere gold. So when your faith remains strong throughout many trials, it will bring you much praise and glory and honor on the day when Jesus Christ is revealed to the whole world. So what does this mean? This is what it means. Right now, your life, my life, every Christian's life is like this gold on the left. You can see it. It's in there. There is some good. There is some shininess. There is some sparkly. You can tell that there's value and worth and so many amazing things about that gold because it's gold. But yet, it is so torn up by other crap. It is so torn up by other crap. What happens is gold needs to be put through fire in order to get from here to there. To get from here to there, gold's got to be put through fire. And we're the same way. The fire's hot, fire's uncomfortable, fire burns, fire hurts, we don't like it. No one wants to walk through a fire. I can't imagine asking any one of you, hey, would you like to walk through this fire? And you'd be like, yes, that sounds like a great idea. Unless, of course, you're at my old college and everybody has had a little bit too much to drink and then one kid thinks it's a good idea and so they do it and then get burned. But that's another story for another day. We don't like going through the fire. But the text is saying to be glad. There's a point to it. The reason you're going through the fire, the reason God doesn't cause anything bad in your life, but the reason you're walking through this fire is because He's trying to make you like that. And one day your life is going to be like that, even though your life may feel like that so much right now. It's to refine you. It's to make you pure. It's to strengthen your faith in Him. And though it sucks that we have to walk through fire, one day we come out on the other side. There's one of my favorite preachers, his name is Matt Chandler. He says this. He says, listen, you guys, you got to understand that if you're on this earth for 80 years, right, and then you exist for 50. If you're a Christian, you die, you go to heaven, you're with Jesus, you're in perfect joy, you're like that gold, everything is perfect. If you're still existing 50 trillion years into the future, if you're still existing 50 trillion years into the future in perfect joy, perfect peace, perfect happiness, perfect harmony, perfect unity with believers, right? If you're still existing and life is that good, you've got to assume that somewhere along the line in this little 80 years, it's worth it. You got to assume that these trials and these 80 years are worth getting you to 50 trillion years down the road where everything is still perfect and has no chance of ever going back to something like that. And that's why Corinthians says this. That is why we never give up. Though our bodies are dying, our spirits are being renewed every day. For our present troubles are small and won't last very long, yet they produce for us a glory that vastly outweighs them and will last forever. So we don't look at the troubles we can see now. Rather, we fix our gaze on things that cannot be seen. For the things we see now will soon be gone, but the things we cannot see will last forever. So getting from here to there may seem like this impossible task because, to be honest, I have no idea what a lot of you are going through, what that underdog story is that you face each and every day in your life, that helps you knock it out of bed every day, that you have that low view of yourself, you have that anger problem, that the things that are going on in your life. I have no idea how big those mountains are, so I don't know how impossible it might seem for you getting from here to there. But what I do know and what I can promise you, what I can tell you is that on the other side, for those who belong to Jesus, something so amazing we can't even comprehend it awaits us, and that will never go away. That's what makes all this worth something, and finding joy and peace along the way is a matter of perspective. It can take a really long time for a football offense to march a ball 100 yards down the field. Along the way, there's first downs, there's fourth downs and long, there's penalties, there's timeouts, there's injured players, there's fumbles, and there's more first downs. And it can be easy for a team to sit in that discouragement when they're at the next fourth and long. When it could be so much easier to just punt the ball away because they're tired and they want the defense to come back out on the field and take over. But the offense that triumphs is the one that keeps their gaze on the prize of the 7 points at the end of the field. Show you another clip from this movie, We Are Marshall. The team that had been facing nothing but trial from the media, the sports world, the hometown fans had a job to do. They had to get the ball to the end zone. And this touchdown would win the game for them, and not scoring would lose. This is a true story, mind you. And this thing is so significant because it comes at such a pivotal point of the movie, but also such a pivotal point of the town's history, that if they lost this game, it would have been the end. And I'll let you see what happens. The touchdown makes this game actually, and everything they're doing, all their efforts, actually worthwhile. So, Nathan, if you would, cue that video.
Clock is still ticking. He can't make it. Still in bounds. Take his home, man. Cut. Split right. 213. Bootleg screen. Bootleg screen.
Marshall, that final pass, as you saw, carried with it all of life's trials, right? The ups and the downs that they had faced. You kind of saw it. Also, sorry, it's too late. Spoiler alert for that movie. After the touchdown, the pain and her that they were so used to just being a part of their everyday lives was completely replaced by the joy and the celebration of making it to the end. My question to you tonight is will, in those underdog stories, not only how is God working in you, but will you keep your focus on what's right here, right now, in front of you? Or will you look downfield, 100 yards ahead, at that end zone, and remember the joy that awaits on the other side? Celebrations and trials are going to go the entire way. There's going to be first downs, fourth downs, penalties, timeouts, injured players. They're going to go with you the entire way, until the ultimate celebration comes at the very end, with the ball making it to the end zone for a touchdown. Life's up and downs, hail, don't even hold a candle to, cannot even compare to the ultimate celebration that awaits God's people on the other side of this life. And finding joy along the way there is a matter of looking downfield instead of looking right in front of us. So with that, I want to pray. I'll tell you what's next. Lord, thank you for this good night. Man, I am just so excited for the energy in this room. God, each and every person here who gives time out of their week just to be here in community with each other. Thankful for the people who are here for the first time, second time, or 800th time. Lord, they are each a gift. And I pray that, and I don't know the trials that people go through in this room where they feel like the underdog. And yeah, God, you're working in us, but sometimes it's so hard to see downfield. And I just pray that you would help us to see what's awaiting us on the other side, that we would find joy along the way by remembering that this life isn't all there is. There is another one coming, and the 80 years of pain that we go through here, God, is going to be worth something as you take us from that nasty piece of gold to a pure, perfect, spotless piece. So God, I pray that would be encouragement, a hope to each and every person here, and that they would be reminded that this is only made possible because of your Son, Jesus, and his work on the cross, and because of our imperfection, someone who is perfect needed to die, and Jesus did that for us. He took the place for us, and so because of him, we get to live in eternity with you. And so I pray your hand on small groups, that you would just be at work in our conversations, moving in our hearts and our minds, and that this place would just be filled with your presence here on campus tonight. So I thank you for each one of these leaders. I pray that you guide their words and guide our small groups in your Son's name.